मैं बात कर रहा था कि मंडल कमीशन लागू होने से पहले भारत में किन किन आयोगों का गठन किया गया और किस तरह से इसकी एक लंबी लड़ाई चली। सोचिए कि आज से 34 साल पहले रिजर्वेशन लागू हुआ था, लेकिन 2019 तक भारत के विश्वविद्यालय में 0 ओबीसी प्रोफेसर थे। और अब आज भी ओबीसी प्रोफेसर कह सकते हैं कि 27% रिजर्वेशन लागू होने के बाद भी इंडियन एक्सप्रेस का पिछले साल का डेटा है कि सिर्फ 13% ओबीसी लोगों को रिजर्वेशन का फ़ायदा मिला है। और ओबीसी का एक ऐसा तबका है जिसे हम पिछड़ा समाज बोलते हैं, वो अभी भी हाशिए पर पड़ा हुआ है, वो अभी भी पिछड़ा हुआ है। और बहुत कह सकते हैं कि भारत के कैंपस में बहुत सारी ऐसी जातियाँ हैं जिनको आप खोजेंगे तो मिलेंगी नहीं। 3743 जातियों में से चुनिंदा कह सकते हैं कि 10 से 15-20 जातियां भारत के कैंपस में आए होंगी। तो जो ये सवाल है, न्याय का जो सवाल है, जो हम जिस न्याय पर बात करने के लिए यहाँ इकट्ठा हुए हैं, उसके लिए हम सबसे पहले चाहेंगे कि हरीश वानखेड़े सर लगातार इस पर बात करते रहे हैं। जो प्रतिनिधित्व का सवाल है, जो रिप्रेजेंटेशन का सवाल है, जो आरक्षण का सवाल है, लगातार अखबारों में लिखते रहें। तो मैं सर को आमंत्रित करता हूँ कि वो अपनी बात रखें।
Very warm Jai Bhim to all of you. Revolutionary greetings on the Mandal Divas today. After as the introductory speaker just said, that after multiple difficulties that we are now gathered here to speak and celebrate this very important day, that for that which we are gathered here. Let me start with, of course, along with you, I am also here to listen to these two very important political leaders of our times. The general elections this time, 2024 general elections, we have seen that probably the issue of constitutionalism and social justice, these were the two major issues this time that kind of galvanized the general masses and tried to make a very deep impact on Indian politics. And Uttar Pradesh became the kind of a cornerstone of that particular battle, where mainly the India Alliance under the leadership of Samajwadi Party created an uproar that somewhere if we are not somewhere securing or protecting the constitutional validities, if we are not protecting the values of social justice, probably the future of this particular country will be in doldrum. And therefore this battle was extremely crucial for all of us, and UP somewhere showed the way that how to somewhere unify the kind of very what you call disturbed majority at that part of time, that the scheduled caste are not seeing or engaging with the OBCs for that matter, or there is no connectivity between the oppressed groups. So somewhere we'll see that this particular momentum in Uttar Pradesh showed the way that social justice politics is possible, and through that a kind of a very significant challenge to the right wing forces was created, and through that a new political awakening was very much possible. And therefore I like the theme that when they are suggesting that there should be a politics of social justice, that social justice is not just a technical term which is required to present some kind of a representative at different level, but it has some kind of a political value. Politics in itself, it's an ethical category, that when you do politics, we are basically engaging with the general welfare of the population. But apart from that abstract notion of politics, we also understand that politics has some kind of a social responsibility, and that engaging with the marginalized social groups, with the deprived marginalized groups, and engaging them in the power structure, that is the value which is required for social justice. And therefore this particular idea of politics of social justice is extremely important when we are thinking about where the Indian future should go. And therefore I will start with three minute things, that when we are thinking about politics of social justice, what do you mean by that? Okay, and of course the earlier speaker also suggested on a similar line that when we take name of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, we understand that somewhere there was an initial battle to begin with, that the basic human rights which were denied to a large population The first battle or the politics of social justice started with that particular claim that human beings required basic human entitlements, basic human rights, the qualification to become equal vis-a-vis others. Okay, so that particular claim, which is basically not been granted in Indian system because of the caste values, and caste somewhere make differentiations between us, oppressed us, and somewhere create a kind of a hazard to become a normal human being. And therefore the first battle or the first larger attempt of politics of social justice is to create a human society, an egalitarian value, a society which is democratic in nature, which will have this kind of a larger notion that human beings should be engaged with another human being as a normal person. That is one of the finest battle that Indian Constitution has provided to us. Ambedkar created that uproar that without that sense of humanity, without that sense of equality, without that human consideration, nation will not have any value. And therefore this is one of the finest concern that the social justice movement created in India. Apart from that, we will also see that this is just one part of the larger mobilization. Second is of course that though we know, so the first criteria, the conditioning of the social justice movement was based on this value that human rights for each and every one, this sense of equality is must. But we also understand that this is just a small intervention in the modern times. The second step, which was crucial in the larger politics of social justice, is the idea of representation. That though we are equal, though Constitution grant us some kind of a common social, political and human rights, but the power sector, the modernity has offered you multiple newer institutions like judiciary, parliament, bureaucracy, and if we examine the condition of this institution, we will find that these institutions are hegemonized, controlled by peculiar kind of class and caste. And therefore if we are not intervening, if the modern institutions are not democratic, if the modern institutions like parliament and judiciary is not kind of participatory vis-a-vis the multiple social groups, then it will be an hegemonic and a very, very autocratic exclusive group. And therefore the second step was to make institutions, the modern institution of this country, more democratic and participatory. And therefore people like Mandal for that matter become very crucial. Why? Because through their commission, through their proposal, it was suggested that Indian institutions, mainly modern institutions, are extremely exclusive. There is no participation of the marginalized social group, and without that participation the idea of democracy will collapse. And therefore this commission created that kind of an uproar that without the participation of the marginalized social group, mainly the OBCs at that part of time, the nature of Indian state will be always Brahmanical and will be always be controlled by the social elites, and therefore participation of the marginalized social group should be ensured. Third, it was not only stopped there. The politics of social justice is not only about participation and representation, it goes beyond that. And that is basically to examine that those who are at the margin of the social order, mainly scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, the OBCs, they should form a kind of a fraternal unity. They should come together as a political class and contest democratic election in such a way that they can dismantle, they can dissolve, they can challenge the continuity of privileged classes on political power. That they are privileged and they are also dominating the political power for such a long time, and only the unity of the oppressed people can challenge that kind of a conformism, and we can become the ruling elites of this particular country. So this idea that social justice is not only about human rights or for that matter participation or representation, but it also has this kind of a larger political vision that we can change the larger dynamics of political power, that we can become the what you call the ruling elites of this particular nation by building that kind of an oppressed unity. And therefore when today when this kind of a larger challenge vis-a-vis the right-wing forces was emerging, at that part of time India Alliance and of course Samadhi Party was crucial part of that particular alliance. This idea that social justice has a responsibility to challenge the kind of a convention that are going on, mainly the political conventions, and to defeat the right-wing forces, mainly the Bharatiya Janata Party, without building that kind of a larger coalition, larger alliance between the oppressed people, there will be a difficult possibility. And therefore, we will find that UP showed that larger vision, that though they were political party which was continuously suggesting that it represent what they call the Bahujan value, that it created that kind of a concern for social justice for a very, very long time. But when that particular party was not part of the larger India alliance, you will find that the people are so conscious. In Uttar Pradesh, the scheduled caste mobilization vis-a-vis the India alliance becomes so powerful and popular that a large chunk of the seats in Uttar Pradesh were basically won by the Samajwadi Party and the India alliance. So this showed something very crucial, that if you propose a better alternative to the oppressed groups, they are very much ready to challenge the available or the kind of a current political establishment and can create an alternative. The second issue is, of course, that though the politics of social justice started with the particular claim on human rights, okay, means across in Maharashtra, everywhere where you go, that basic human rights for the Dalits specifically and mainly for the Adivasis, that was the basic concern of social justice politics. But when we check that whether on that particular parameter have we achieved anything in today's time, and we'll find that at least on that particular scale the condition is still very, very problematic. Most of, like for that matter, just few years earlier, the case of Rohit Vemula's institutional murder, that murder took place in an academic institution. That institution was one of the finest university in India, and in that kind of a modern institution, if the caste prevails so much that one student has to commit suicide, that means caste is derailing our institution to the most precarious nature. And therefore it was required that somewhere we need to kind of understand that at the level of social justice politics, we are at the nadir of the larger requirement for social justice. And therefore the battle is not only for representation, and the earlier speaker suggested that university hardly had any scheduled caste representation or OBC representation, or even if you check the number of vice chancellors from scheduled caste or OBC communities in India, you will find nominal, one or two here and there, or for that matter the judges in Supreme Court, again nominal, or the top bureaucracy, again nominal. So we know this particular factor, but the battle, apart from calling for a major representation in these higher bodies, the battle is also about the basic human rights of the oppressed groups. And if we are not protecting those human rights, if there is a possibility that people are still suffering by caste atrocities and they are still denied basic human rights, then we are not leading the battle for social justice, and therefore that is crucial. And the third, last, which I just suggested, that without creating a unity of the oppressed groups, social justice battle will have no aim. And therefore the message that has come up in the last 2024 general elections, that somewhere we need to create this bigger unification between the oppressed communities, and Uttar Pradesh showed that kind of facility, that though there is a political party which is not interested in dealing with bigger alliances, but there are people are conscious enough to understand what is good for their political future, and through that kind of a consciousness a new change emerged in Uttar Pradesh, and through that we need to learn that how social justice politics will go further. And therefore it is a bigger battle. The question of representation is of course crucial, and on Mandal Divas we must reiterate that all modern institutions, including universities, judiciary, all modern institutions should have a representation. But apart from that, there is another bigger concern that has come up, that we all know that post-globalization in the new liberal economic order, most of the spaces are privatized. And therefore the second stage of representation is also to claim representation of the OBCs in the new liberal economy. That new liberal economy should not be just free for the social elites to grab the profits and control by their own. Around 1,000 unicorns today that are there, almost 99% of unicorns are controlled and managed by the social elites. There is no OBC in that unicorns, there is no scheduled caste or scheduled tribe that controls the modern economy. And therefore, though we are claiming that the Mandal Commission report should be implemented in multiple other spheres, I think thinking that the private economy should be a new zone for our contest, new zone for our application of social justice policies. If we are not doing that, I think we are relegating, we are somewhere controlling and limiting the larger prospect of social justice, and that is the new model, I think, which is required for the movement, for the political parties, for the intellectual, for the students to think about. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'll see what else comes.
शुक्रिया हरीश वानखेड़े सर।